And you are live.
Thank you. This is a continuation of our committee of conference on the 2023 budget. I apologize for the late start. I just want to make it clear that I was tied up at a joint legislative management committee meeting and which just finished its work. So I am late to come back here since I can't seem to be in two places at once. So I just want to give a public explanation of the reason for the delay. So we have a new sheet of what's been grayed out, and so if there's some other areas of discussion, and then maybe we can proceed. I think this afternoon we're going to have to start making some decisions around general fund increases and how we're going to come within a spending box that, as I said, you had a smaller one, we had a larger one. What the one is that we will have to accommodate as we finish up the budget. So, Representative Hooper, do you have some other items that you've identified that you either want to raise questions or close out or say?
Well, yes, thank you, Senator Kitchell. And we have two pieces of language that we could share with you. And I can see one or two small things that we can talk about, that we can close out. Let's do language first, how about? And so let's go to, you had proposed some language, an alternative to our dispatch language, and we would like to respond to that. So
Do we have
yeah, Chrissy should have it. It's B1100. It says fiscal year 23 one-time general fund appropriations. I see it's being passed out.
Representative Cooper, Senator Shears let me know that he was having some further discussions with Commissioner Sherling, and I will, and it's around this very topic of dispatch, and so he knew that there was work going on, and so what I would do. How can you pay for something that not affect property taxes potentially? But so I think thank you for the language. I'm going to have to ask Senator Sears to take a look because he was the one who had the lead discussions with on the dispatch issue.
Thank you for that, and so please share this language with him. You'll see that it does. There are two pieces. One, we're amending the B1100, and then the second, we're amending language down in E209.1. And if you look at the back sheet, the back of the page, the second page, we also are concerned about the impact on property taxes. And so that was our attempt to address it. This is amending your language, so it needs to be read with what you have already done. But I just wanted to point that out, that we've thought about the same thing. So I understand folks need to take a look at that, and we'll come back to it. Okay. And then the second thing.
But let me, as I'm looking at, you've added does not adversely affect property taxes. Is that in fact a condition that can't be met because there are many towns that actually are getting a free service and others are paying significantly? And so it might mean, and they're paying through property taxes. So are you suggesting that in those towns that aren't paying now and are getting free, if it's not offered free, then it just seems like it's quite it could preclude getting some equity in terms of the cost of this system across all towns.
So this has been a concern of ours, in particular our House Government Operations Committee, that essentially, so we know there are inequities in the state today, as you referenced. There are some who are paying, and some who are not paying. And so that would be wonderful to address that situation. But the other part of the problem is the state, it would seem, a way to express what is happening, one way to express that would be that the state is shifting off its responsibility to local taxpayers with the proposal that we originally had, which is $11 million and locals figure it out. And we're all trying to figure out what the right path forward is. And we want to not have an adverse effect on property taxes. So
I guess my concern is if you set that as a condition from the get-go, then basically what we're saying is we would have to come up with a funding mechanism that's funded through the state budget.
So if you look at what this is attached to in the language, it's a report back on what to do.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess what I'm saying is, could we at least have it so that it would identify what would be the impact of, it could very well be 120 towns that has no impact. And we would like to say effect is AFFECT. But I guess I'm just wondering, that could preclude a lot of analysis if that's conditioned.
Just for the record, may I on the spelling? I insisted that it was effect, and Ms. Clark insisted that it was affect. So I was wrong, Ms. Clark was right, and you all are right. So why don't you take this language, read it together with what is in here? You said that you wanted to have Senator Sears review, and we'd be happy to consider, let's just keep the conversation going.
All right, well, just a second. We have Senator Baruth and then Senator Westman. This is, obviously, we're going to have more conversation. This is the start. So, Senator Baruth.
I think that the chair's point is around the word adversely affect. If you have that in, it's to say that if property taxes go up a penny, then that shouldn't be the recommendation. So just swapping out adversely for a word like unduly, indicating that there might in fact be some effect on property rates, but it would be within reason or within equitable bounds. But we can wordsmith it out.
We can wordsmith it, or if there are better words there. This was our shot at it in our committee. We understand that if we are shifting a service that the state has been providing to our communities, it's hard to imagine that there won't be an impact on property taxes. And I think we ought to be very aware of that. You will recall that in the language we sent you, we asked for an analysis of whether or not this should be a service that was continued to be provided by the state and not shifted to the locals. We asked for kind of an analysis of both ideas before we did anything. And we're trying to work within the framework that you suggested back. I personally think there's an interesting conversation about whether the state is providing this service and uniformly and fairly providing it so that some of us aren't paying and others are, versus shifting it entirely to the locals.
Well, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. We have disparate. I guess what I'm saying is any model that's being examined, just to say something is totally off bounds is perhaps from the get-go is the issue here. So Senator Westman.
So I would just say that causes me difficulty when you say, I don't care whether it's affect or effect, because I feel like, and I think my community feels like, we've been taken advantage of as a local community providing service now. Lamoille County and Barry, which contracts with us, over 40% of all the calls that we do are the overage because the state has not provided enough service. So we're already in our property taxes carrying a significant load that isn't our own.
Yep. That's true of multiple communities around the state.
Excuse me.
It's really the four places where you have local call centers now are carrying more of the load than they should, and we're carrying it on the property tax. So when you say adversely affecting their property taxes, we're already adversely affected.
So the chairs had to step out of the room for just a moment.
Okay, I should have mentioned when we began that Representative Fagan is on the floor. He is attending to some obligations there.
He's on his way, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. The problem is we may lose the Senate at this point.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, we're back.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. We have so much going on. So I don't know where I left the conversation. I'm going to give this to Senator Gale, and we'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, let's just continue the conversation.
All right. So maybe you can give us something else. Or
Yes, so the other thing that we wanted to have you take a look at is the cash fund. So Chrissy, if you could pass that out. You have it. Yeah. So you had begun the discussion around creation of a cash fund, and here are our thoughts back.
some of this looks a little familiar,
It
Representative.
does, doesn't it? But if you can read it in the yellow section that is at the second sentence on the first page, C, use of funds, there is a new sentence there that says that that these are going to be appropriated through the budget, basically. So either the BAA or the budget. So that's our proposal there. And then the more significant is the second proposal, which is at, on the second page, E 106.2. And we've just described what we think. So you had suggested, or what we looked at yesterday, had proposed that a group will come together and do an analysis of how the cash fund ought to be used. And if their uses should be prioritized, we are adding the language, how to prioritize the use of the fund to emphasize strong financial management in state government. So just wanting to take advantage of this and assure that we're of the bounty of the resource and make sure that we're applying it in the right place. And then you had talked about paying off debts and deficits, and we agree with that. And then the final addition that we've added is that if the fund should be, the use of it should include assistance for projects to mitigate emergent health and safety needs.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it? I thought,
Yeah.
Uh-huh, okay.
Yes, it does.
Uh-huh.
So paying off debt, putting us in a strong position, and attending to urgent health and safety related issues are essentially the three areas that we are suggesting the cash fund could be used for going forward. And we're looking for somebody to do an analysis of, give us some additional advice on that.
The someone is finance management and JFO.
Yeah,
Treasurer.
and the treasurer.
Oh, you added the treasurer.
Okay.
Looks good to me.
We certainly, I don't know if it needs any tweaking or not, but I think, you know, we'd had some discussion about how to modify that from the original, which helped us kind of think about how we would want to frame it. It's we don't have parallel construction though, do we?
I'm not sure I follow you.
Grammar.
Grammar.
I'm sorry, I did not do well in English or
Well,
whatever you call it.
I actually have a college professor here. We've already, you know, changed the E to A, and modeling only has one L. So my question is,
You say that you could combine A and B together.
it seems like A and B are kind of somewhat redundant.
They can be combined, if
We
it
can
should be
combine,
prioritized.
prioritize, but do the two things in one, so we can combine A and B.
I-
And,
I know.
but if we could agree with it in concept, and then we can just.
Yeah.
Modeling?
I was gonna say on the first page, I still don't like enacted.
I don't have a chance to get with Becky, I'm gonna let us know.
Okay, so we're going to agree that this language works, but we know it needs a little bit of editing more than the concept itself.
we will accept technical edits.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I'm putting that in the done pile.
Yes, and we'll leave it up to our staff to make sure.
We will get it, because it's statute, we'll make sure that Becky goes through it, that probably by enacted probably just needs to be the word by.
Okay. All right, that's good. Thank you for.
So those are the two pieces of language we had for you. If you want to return to our sheets, maybe we can close out a very small handful of additional items. Let's see. On B 204, the additional money for security, or unless you want to hold this, Senator Kitchell, because now we're talking money. Maybe I should skip that one.
Yeah, probably we should, because that's a base increase.
Yep.
And then we'll
Okay,
just-
then
do them all at once.
the other areas that we have, I think all of the B900s can be closed. Those are all transportation.
Yeah, I think we talked about that, and they'd all go as a group, and they had some internal shuffling, but I don't think there was anything. So where are all those on?
So the bottom of the first page, 905 through 913. First page.
First, oh, good, all right. Sorry.
And then there is an E903 on the third page near the bottom. I don't know if Chris will know if there's any language changing there on the structure of.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
No changes from the set.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the B900s will all be updated to the transportation deal. Bill deal.
Okay, so the EV instruct, that's closed out too.
Yeah.
903.
And so we are really down to the money, aren't we? We've done so much. We
I
should-
think- I think so.
D103, the IIJ reserve.
Ms. Clark's pointing out that we could give up, it's already grayed out, the D103, the IIJA reserve, something that was close to our hearts.
I know, but,
There's a different way of tackling that, so,
You do have the fee.
The fee. yeah, D103, we can do that.
I had a rewrite of the reporting from the DA and I don't know if that's ready. And the question that I had is really, if we wanted, from my perspective, what we're really interested in is that we have been hearing about the impacts of the inadequacy of the rates, and that has been a compelling argument. You've got 7, we moved it up to 8. But it's not only DAs, SSAs, but it's also our choices for care, our long-term care system. And it seems to me, what I would like to know in terms of reporting back is, with the additional increase in the rates, what have been the beneficial impacts that have been experienced? Have we been able to make progress reducing vacancies? Have we been able to make any progress on reducing the number of Vermonters waiting for services? Have we made any progress on reliance on inappropriate, prolonged use of emergency rooms? So, which only relates to the DA's piece. But it seems to me that we're doing a great deal of effort to try to get a significant increase in rates. We've been told what has been the negative impact of the current rates, and it's a way of telling us how much progress did this infusion. And between it all, it's how many millions and millions of dollars. It's a significant amount of money. So I thought maybe we could get rid of that other language that was so problematic and just say, this is what we would really like to know. What difference did this increase in funding result in these key areas, which are the very areas that the agencies have identified as symptomatic of the reimbursement?
So the draft that I just sent to Teresa and Sarah and Chrissy does not eliminate the A part, which I guess is the reporting on to be determined. The report, the last way we had it was they would work together to determine what would be reporting. But how, if you report on that, what's the basis of the information that you're using to report on the items that would be, wait times for service, either mental health or long-term care in the community, impact on incidents in the emergency departments, or improving vacancies either in the designated agencies or the home health agencies. But that's good to report on, but what's the basis for that reporting and what time frame?
Well, this is my first cut to try to get something that ties back to the being able to get some idea about what improvement these rate increases generated. And to me, that's really important to know how much progress that we've made in those key areas that have been identified by the provider community as symptomatic or the impacts, the collateral impacts of the current. So we can wordsmith it, but it's just a different approach to say, this is really what this is. We don't want to get into something elaborate. We just want to know what difference it made.
I think asking the question about what difference is it making is an outstanding way to think about that. And, so asking, what you have described in B 1, 2, and 3 makes a lot of sense to me. I haven't been able, obviously, to consult with my colleagues, but I can see that this would, the B section, I think we can work with. I continue to be concerned about A. And so I think we need some more wordsmithing.
Can I ask Representative Hooper what your continued concern about A is? Is it that the state determines rather than a equal share of the authority?
The reporting requirements have always been established through the provider agreements. And those agreements are mutually reached. They're not dictated by one side to the other. And while you modified or attempted to ameliorate the, now I'm afraid to use the word, the effect of that, it still puts AHS in the driver's seat. And from what I understand, Senator Kitchell, the important question she's asking about, are these rates making any difference, is a separate and different conversation, which is captured in B. I just don't know what the necessity of A is. If what we're really after is what is described in B.
Well, there might be others, one of the things that we were concerned about would be sort of the allocation of the funding and as I said before, we had that unfortunate situation and we got the letter again from staff feeling that, without some kind of guidance or statement, that you could see a disproportionate amount of money going to, the higher level, higher paid administrative position, or the CEO. So why don't you take a look at it? I think what you're saying is that the contracts lay out the performance requirements. And this is related to the provider rate increases, and you're concerned that we're conflating the two.
Thank you. Well, for saying it that way.
Is that what you're trying to communicate to
Yes.
us? And did we hear it correctly? All right, well, you take a look at what we're adding, and this isn't just DAs, this is the
Old health.
this is
community.
home health and so forth, so
Yeah.
it's not just the DAs, SSAs here that are involved in, what we're talking about here.
Yeah. And so thank you. We will look at that and we'll continue this conversation. Senator Kitchell, this morning, I think it was this morning, maybe it was it was yesterday, we agreed to B 1100 A8B, which dealt with the $200,000 for to fund programs to assist individuals with access to food, the CSA. And then you added the language which we agreed to about allowing the Agency of Agriculture to apply for primary care health provider to apply on behalf of up to 20 patients for whom CSA shares have been recommended. I just seen the email from Abby Willard, who is saying, we are applying for a grant, we being the agency of
Not the same email.
yeah. So I am curious, we may want to rethink that, just because they're concerned about having to set up a parallel program when in fact they're going to be able to get pretty substantial amount of money to do what you were hoping to accomplish. So we may want to just revisit that language.
Well, okay, it just seems to me that, like so many there may be more eligible people wanting it, and should we try to do some kind of connection or pilot with
Yeah.
people who have medical conditions where the quality of medical conditions where the quality of nutrition is really key. So I yesterday we thought it was good. Now ag doesn't like it, or
But it's not that they don't like it, they believe they have an opportunity to access significantly more money to accomplish.
I guess the question for me is, if there's enough money to meet the need for everybody, then this language is irrelevant. But if in fact we have more demand than even with this new grant would be able to support, would we like to try to have a small number just to see how it might work? And that's the question that I've got, and I assume that they might be listening. But in other words, out of the process by which you're giving out, I don't know, they must have some methodology how these shares would be distributed, what the criteria would be. So if the answer is we believe that we're going to get so much money, we can give CSA shares to everyone who wants one and needs one, then certainly the language isn't necessary. But if in fact, if it first comes first serve, I don't know what it is. So they need to give us more information, I think, before I'm willing to say we shouldn't try to support this linkage between health improvement with this, if we're putting in public resources. So I'm sure we'll be getting another email.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss that. It seems
You know, it's good that you remind me, because between being on the floor and no electronics and being out here, anybody who's sending me an email is going to be sadly disappointed that when I read it tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Well, I'm impressed that you have time to read emails at all.
Well, I don't, frankly.
Okay, we do not have any additional language. We've offered several pieces of language over the past couple of days that I don't think we've closed out yet. I'm trying to remember what they are. So we've talked about that. And oh, here's one that I think is still open that we can close. The B1100 A21. We had misunderstood what this is, the appraisal and litigation costs for the Sheldon Hydro Dam.
Yes.
We had been told that it was a new idea and was precedent setting. We're very fortunate to have your long memory, Senator Kitchell, and it is not new or precedent setting, and so we agree with that.
Okay, thank you very much. I had told you that, and I know that Adam Gresham had let Rebecca Samaroff know the nature of our conversation, so I'm sure it was helpful to get some clarity on that. So I'm sure the little town of Sheldon will be most appreciative.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for a small community to bear.
Absolutely, and I'm sure 80% of all the tax revenues are to support the education fund. They're not, I doubt that Sheldon has a very large municipal budget. So you can imagine really the benefit of the grand list integrity is on the ed fund side.
So it's actually on that one-time DF through.
Okay,
Was it committee want to talk about
yeah,
DF again?
yeah, we need to go back. And do you have anything else? Otherwise, we can start talking about general fund again. So,
Yeah, I do not, we do not have anything else.
Okay.
Teresa has this. I think Teresa should have this.
Okay, so we have another document here.
I have one.
And Stephanie, if you.
It's the GF one-time document, but before we start that, I just, is it okay to take a few minutes to sort of talk about the position of the general
I'm
fund
trying
overall?
to see what we have. We do not have well, let me see with the back page here. Does she mean this?
No, you got a blank page. It should be 3 pages long, right, 3 pages with print on them.
No, okay, I do not,
I'll run a couple copies.
Yeah, what we have for, just the overall position of the general fund.
All right, so we want to talk about the general fund overall and
it's only 2, but.
It's not that long. And this is not formatted.
we got the documents.
We're struggling to pull that up.
Oh, okay, so we'll wait just a minute until you've got them.
Sarah, I CC'd you on the, when I sent it to Senator Westman and others.
I want to do the overall picture, and then we could go through both the base and the one-time if you were inclined to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just not formatted to print correctly in that PDF version, so I'm just gonna go into the document, which I have.
So I sent it to Teresa and Chrissy.
This is formatted funky in the PDF, so they're
Okay.
reformatting, and I'll reformat it for you guys as well.
The version we have looks like it's right.
It has like this, it is, I'm just, we can even correct, and then it gets to 2 pages, unless it's.
Yeah,
I don't know that.
Yeah, I sent it as a PDF.
So you don't need this.
Yeah, we added those tabs so that you don't need the last page at all.
Perfect. So
Sorry.
the last page.
Okay.
Operator error on sending a PDF from itself.
All right, so are we all, do you have it now?
No,
No, Ms. Clark ran downstairs to get it, and we are losing Representative Jessup to the floor. But we'll, Rep. Fagan and I will stay with you.
Okay.
But we're running
to today.
Yeah, she does.
Let me just check.
Okay. So we're ready now.
Okay, so the document we have here is headed B1100 one-time House and Senate side by side. 5-5 at 12:57, is that what you've got?
13:58.
13:58, one, almost 2 o'clock, but I think it's the same thing.
It's document 362963.
Yep, it's the right one.
Yeah, got it.
It just got printed, Sarah just printed it,
We
so.
got 499.
Oh, 499. Oh, sorry.
We have 362-499.
Okay, that's me.
362963 is what you want.
Okay, we will set this aside
Oh,
and
yeah,
more running is happening.
I had this, it's really hard with Excel documents in DM that other people have them open, they get saved as a new document.
okay, but this is, my 9 is gone, right?
They're not on it yet.
Okay,
These two, Frida and.
how are we doing? Got
But even before we go on,
You have to run downstairs.
if you want to.
It's happening.
I was gonna tell them.
And
Then you solved it. Okay, so you have the document now?
Yeah, I hear her footsteps.
Oh,
We don't have a printer in the room with us, so it's downstairs.
It's on several documents now.
well, I guess Sarah's getting her exercise.
It's Miss Clark who's getting it, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Clark. Getting her exercise. Fondly noted, Sarah.
We have a 3-page document.
Okay. So, we're getting to the point where we're gonna have to start making budget decisions, both in terms of one-time and what would be, what we would consider, going in the base for ongoing. And, as we've talked about, and Representative Hooper's been part of those discussions, we had to determine what we had for, a revenue box within which to negotiate this budget, the Committee of Conference. And so the House had less money and the Senate had more. And so the tax bills have to be still yet to be finalized in conference. But just like when we were building the budget on the Senate side, we had an agreed upon revenue target with our finance committee. And that's what we built the budget around, which was 13.5 million more than the House. The two tax committees are going to be negotiating, and there are a lot of differences in the different tax bills, but there is agreement that what we have is 40 million to work within, and that's what they would, that's the box within which we have to work, which is more than what the House had, less than what the Senate had. But Stephanie's going to run through, because one of the things that people always are thinking about is where can we move money? Where is there something else? Are there pockets that have been identified to help us sort of get to where we might want to end up in terms of what we fund? So Stephanie's going to put her magic to work. So we know that we have more than the House, less than the Senate. We can help close that with some of the magic here, the budgetary knowledge that comes in at the end of the session. And so I'm going to have Stephanie sort of give us the details underneath of where we are, so that we can start closing out sections on the money this afternoon.
So that $40 million target that the tax committees are working with is a total on all the pieces that they're working with, at $40 million off the forecast for the state revenue. And that means from the Senate's bottom line perspective, it's that number was $33 million in the Senate position. It was 46 something in the House position. But it's $7 million of less revenue from the Senate's total bottom line on the spending side that you have available. Now, there are some pieces that help.
Stephanie, are we going through a sheet, or are you just talking big picture?
I'm just explaining
Okay.
pieces. I'm not going through a sheet at all. That $7 million of revenue is the sort of the change in the bottom line of total spending from that's being put on the table in the general fund from the tax committees, essentially. So they know what that box they're working toward, and we're working toward the same box. There are several pieces of sort of analysis and items that have come up that help mitigate that $7 million that are not on either side right now. And one of them, I'm just going to explain how we get to where sort of a picture is for you to work from the rest of the afternoon. There's almost $2.7 million within the general fund balance sheet because of the calculation related to the stabilization reserve, and you had all spent less in the budget adjustment process, but we hadn't updated that calculation. There's also money available to be reverted from the FY22 Pay Act, because there's still impact from the run out of CRF funds through for the last half of 2021. And so the administration has done the distribution of the FY22 Pay Act. That's $4 million. You have internally here made a decision to move $2 million of workers' comp into the contingent list, so that frees up money in your position. The tax committees the Senate had a proposal to increase the payment per parcel payment to the towns. That is a decision that's off the table now, so that freed up $850,000. And then we've been tracking the decisions to date that the conference committee has made about various general fund pieces, and the pieces that we have to sort of add to the tally. Like they concurred with the weighting bill that adds $650 to the tally. You've made decisions about cannabis this morning. That has a net impact on the general fund. We talked about the pieces in the SUD. They're mostly small pieces. The Franklin County Airport piece that was talked about, has that been discussed here? I can't remember. Okay, yes.
I don't think we agreed.
No, it was,
We did bring it up.
So,
yeah, we
so
talked
if you-
about the 375.
so the
I can,
to give you a working position in the general fund, when you include all those pieces and then everything that you have not decided to date, you're essentially $1.25 million to the good. To the extent that you make decisions in the one-time list that are down from the Senate, you will improve that position. If you make decisions that are the same as the Senate, you won't have a change to that position. And the same thing in the base. If you make decisions about the spending in the base that do less than the Senate, you have improved that position. More, you've eaten into that position. And now I just want to talk briefly about the base versus one time. So that you have to be in balance in total in the general fund. There isn't a hard line for base versus one time. Both the House and the Senate have done sort of an amazing job from my perspective of spending less money in the base and more money on one time in the 23 available column to the tune of about $80 million on each side. Whether you make choices that change that 80 million to $78 million or so there's not a hard base or hard one time in 23. And so at this point, what we're seeing is that 1.2 is a choice on either side of that calculation. And so the position you're in now is simply walking through the open items on the sheet now everyone's got the same sheet in front of them, which is the GF one time, and the first page, which is the GF base mostly of the gray out tracking sheet. Are folks able to follow that? Or stop here and ask if there's questions.
So, questions? I think in other words, Stephanie's given us really good news that we have got a target on the tax revenue side that makes it very workable with the additional identification, things that she's identified, and a little bit of play between one time versus base. We should be able to move fairly quickly and in most areas, and probably cover most of the, identified areas that people have wanted to include, that they've added. That, for example, I know for the House, the tax assistance is a really a priority. And we didn't have it on, but it looks like what we have for money can accommodate maybe some of the things that we made different decisions on. So I think we have a pretty good framework to be making our decisions and sufficient money to really put together a really solid budget. So we could start going through the list.
Senator Kitchell, I
Yeah.
think you've had a little bit more time to digest what has been what we're discussing. We are just seeing this for the first time. Could I ask that we take a brief break? I've lost, give us,
It's 2:12.
maybe to 2:30 to put our brains around what you're asking, what we're looking at. We just like to talk with our staff to understand this. I hate to let you go because I know you have, or to pause, but because I know so many demands on you, but we just need a few minutes to understand among ourselves.
Okay, well, all we were trying to do is just update what we have for the revenues, so for the budget, which were different, and obviously allowed the Senate to do more spending, but in the areas that we felt were a high priority, and in some areas you had some things that we didn't include. So it was just setting the kind of the fiscal and the budgetary framework. So if you want to take a break, we're just seeing this for the first time too, the actual sheet here.
Thank you. So you've given us the box. We understand that there is in play 1.25 on the bottom line. And you've outlined kind of the broad issues. And I think we just want to pause and take a breath, and maybe you all want to do that in your committee room also.
Well, I
think it feels like you're getting ready to ask us to make decisions about where we are spending. And we just want to consider that before we start saying yes and no.
Okay, and actually, I'm hoping that it won't be many no's, because I don't think we're gonna have to.
Yeah.
It's not, if we didn't have this additional, or the revenue box was not set at the level it was, let's say, then I think we'd be in having a much more difficult decision. So if you wanna take a break until what, 2:30?
2:30, that would be wonderful,
All
thank
right,
you.
so why don't we go offline?